welcome to This Is My Architecture. I'm Benjamin from AWS. We're here in Las Vegas for the reInvent conference. I'm joined today by my colleague Steve from AWS and Chris from CenturyLink. Steve, what do you do for AWS?
So I'm a solutions architect, and I'm part of the team responsible for connectivity at reInvent.
And Chris, tell me what CenturyLink is.
Sure. CenturyLink actually recently acquired Level 3 Communications, and we're now the second largest enterprise communications provider in the US.
Okay, cool. So today is kind of special because, as it happens, AWS is the customer for this architecture. So Steve, tell us about the requirements that you needed to define in order to make reInvent possible from a connectivity standpoint.
Yeah, so quite simply, we want to deliver an awesome connectivity experience for our customers, partners, and staff that we have here at reInvent. And we want to be able to use Direct Connect to reach our services in 2 different regions and connect all of the venues together.
So what does that mean in terms of actual specifics? We needed internet connectivity, right? We also needed Direct Connect connectivity, and that's supporting what kind of use cases?
Yeah, so as you say, Direct Connect to reach the AWS regions, and internet access for everything else that our attendees are wanting to reach, and delivering that via our partner ShowNets, via Wi-Fi to all of the attendees at the event.
So I guess this is kind of like a work in progress because there's the campus is comprised of multiple locations. It wasn't always the case, right?
Absolutely. We started with the Sands Expo, and then each year we've added more venues.
So what does that mean in terms of building out the connectivity? Then we engage with CenturyLink. We did so in the past. We're doing so today as well. We call you in and we say, we'd like this connectivity. What does that then look like?
Sure. So let me start with the Sands Expo. So you'd mentioned the internet connectivity. That's a relatively simple one, so I'll get that out of the way. We go from the Sands Expo and we go to 2 different IP locations on our network. So one was in Las Vegas and one is in Phoenix.
And I assume this is 2 for redundancy.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And then the Direct Connect?
Sure. So same idea, but the concept here was a very redundant request by your company. So we go from the Sands Expo and we go on one path from our long haul network to a Direct Connect location in Seattle, and then we take a second path that's completely diverse from the first path, and we go to a separate Direct Connect location in Vegas, and then we did the same to get to US East 1.
So these are Direct Connect locations out of the selection of locations that a customer can choose from. I know that when I speak to customers, I tell them, hey, when you're physically in the location, a cross connect is going to be needed. How does that fit into the process here?
Yeah, so CenturyLink will manage that on behalf of the customer. We'll work with AWS to figure out where they're connecting in that location, and we'll order the cross connect on their behalf.
So if I'm using a partner like CenturyLink, I don't actually have to order the cross connect once I'm there.
That's correct.
Okay. So as we've grown and the campus has grown, we've added more locations. How did those get connected in later?
Yeah, so we kept the Sands as the point of connectivity, the Direct Connect locations and the internet. And then we looked at the fiber connectivity we had to these 4 different venues. So we may have had one fiber path to the MGM, for instance, but the diverse requirements required us to build another path. And we went through that exercise at the other 3 facilities as well.
For every one of them?
Exactly right.
And so throughout all of this architecture, start to finish, there really isn't a single point of failure, which was the requirement from us, from the customer. Talk to me a little bit about what happens when we call you into a facility, which is a physical building, but now we want connectivity. Ultimately, this gets to a patch panel, but what happens behind that patch panel?
Sure. So in the perfect scenario, we have fiber already terminated at the building, and it's
That would be nice.
Yes, but not always the case. So we'll construct fiber. We'll work with the different locations to figure out where we can place our equipment and the fiber panels to deliver the service, and we'll patch all of that together and then give you connectivity to a panel that sits in each of these facilities.
So how complicated can that get? How much time does a customer need to think about or plan for if they've located a location that maybe you don't have fiber in?
Yeah, a couple of things there. So one, if we need to construct fiber, that definitely extends the time frame, 60 to 120 days typically. If we have fiber in place, we can usually turn up the service in 25 to 30 days, but the customer still wants to leave time for troubleshooting.
Is testing of this part of something that we do? Is testing of this part something that you do?
We will test all the way up to where we hand off our services, but there's still additional connectivity to your equipment. And again, that's where leaving extra time for troubleshooting always helps.
Okay, so I'm really happy that we got to speak about this because I come to reInvent every year. It just magically works. I get internet connectivity. I'm connected to AWS services. Now I kind of know what goes into that. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Chris. And thank you for watching This Is My Architecture.